Hunter Sung Jin-Woo then opened his eyes, realizing that it had all turned out differently than he expected. The cold sensation faded as he processed the changes. He woke up in a hospital tent, his heavy breathing filling the air. The way he clutched his chest made it clear he had felt it. Again, the sharp pain when that statue pierced his chest, but he didn't understand how he had survived. He thought it might have all been just a dream, a terrifying illusion brought on by his near-death experience. Looking around, he realized he was in a hospital tent. It finally sank in. He had just woken up. He was being attended to by two men in suits. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, seeing them for the first time, felt a bit agitated. It turned out they were inspectors from the Korean Hunters Guild. It turned out that Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had been unconscious for 3 days. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo asked the Korean Guild inspector how Mr. Song and Hunter Joo-hee were doing. The inspector noted that due to the loss of his left arm, it was likely that Mr. Song would no longer be able to continue his hunting career. As for Hunter Joo-hee, she was now in traumatic shock after everything she had witnessed. The second inspector began talking about the other hunters, but Hunter Sung Jin-Woo interrupted him firmly, saying, "That's enough." The inspector informed Hunter Sung Jin-Woo that only 6 people had made it out of the dungeon alive. He added that while the work of hunters was always dangerous, a massacre of that scale was extremely rare. After those 5 hunters escaped, high-ranked hunters entered the double dungeon. When they got inside, they found only one hunter, lying on the altar completely uninjured. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo couldn't believe what the inspector was saying, but it was the truth, something the inspector had witnessed with his own eyes. What made it even more convincing was that the testimonies of the survivors matched perfectly, and the remains of the fallen hunters had been found within the dungeon. The inspector went on to say that they assumed Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had gone through a reawakening. Still, Jin-Woo hadn't fully processed the weight of this revelation. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was shocked by what the inspector had said. A reawakening, an event where someone who had already awakened gained a second awakening, was incredibly rare. And to test whether it had truly happened to him, he would need to prove it. The inspector had brought along a magic power meter. Based on the witnesses' accounts, the power of the stone statues had been so immense that only A-rank or even S-rank hunters could have stood a chance against them. And yet the only survivor from that room was Hunter Sung Jin-Woo. So it was no surprise that suspicion of a reawakening had fallen on him. We then see the results of Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's magic power measurement. The assistant inspector who conducted the test remarked that even by E-rank standards the result was extremely weak, barely registering at all. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo realized that his strength hadn't changed at all. He was still a very weak hunter. There was one thing that confused him, the fact that no one else could see the notification window that appeared in front of him. Only Hunter Sung Jin-Woo could see it, making the entire experience feel even more surreal. The leg of Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, which had been torn off by the shield statue, had fully recovered. Even the wound on his chest, once pierced through, was completely healed, leaving no trace of the life-threatening injuries he had suffered. The dreamlike state Hunter Sung Jin-Woo found himself in left him with no idea what was truly happening in his life anymore. He was trying to make sense of the mysterious notification window, something only he could see. And so while he was carefully examining that strange window, someone walked into his room. It turned out to be his little sister Jinna. She asked if he had hurt his head too and worriedly inquired about his injuries. He smiled faintly and apologized to her, guilt lingering in his eyes. He asked her if she could see the notification window in front of him. When she looked at him in confusion, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo followed up by asking how she usually opens an unread message in games. With the help of his younger sister Jinna, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo managed to open the alert. And just like in the dungeon, a window popped up in front of him. It stated that he had received a daily task titled Get Stronger. This left Hunter Sung Jin-Woo even more bewildered, unsure of what was happening to him. After his little sister visited him, she left together with her friend, leaving Hunter Sung Jin-Woo alone once more with his thoughts and the mysterious system only he could see. Meanwhile, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was still trying to figure out what those mysterious windows were, what they meant, why only he could see them, and what kind of path they were leading him toward. He remembered the same kind of window that had appeared when he was attacked by the statue, and as he thought about it, those memories began to replay in his mind over and over again. In front of him, a new window appeared, an alert for the daily task titled Becoming Stronger. It was a clear reminder that whatever this mysterious system was, it hadn't ended yet. After Hunter Sung Jin-Woo said open, the alert responded and a window appeared, much larger than the previous ones. This assignment listed today's goals: 100 push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and a run. But what stood out most was the warning at the bottom: for failing to complete the tasks he would receive a penalty. The cautious hunter took it as nothing more than a simple joke, thinking the daily task was just some strange prank or illusion. With skepticism in his eyes, he decided to go along with it, at least for now. He decided to go to bed thinking he'd figure everything out after getting some rest. But there was one problem: the task window didn't go away. It hovered persistently in front of him, refusing to let him ignore it. We are then shown a separate warning: if he does not complete the assigned tasks within the prescribed time, he will receive a penalty. The message was clear, this was no joke. Suddenly, after a while, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo woke up to violent shaking, an earthquake so strong it threw him out of bed. But as he looked around, he realized it wasn't just an earthquake. He had been transported to an entirely different place altogether. That place turned out to be a vast scorching desert. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo sat in shock, trying to process what had just happened, unaware that something ominous was looming behind him. The shadowy presence behind him grew larger and larger, closing in without a sound. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo finally turned his attention to the presence behind him. What he saw was a giant sand centipede emerging from beneath the earth, its massive armored body writhing as it rose to the surface. Jin-Woo stared at the giant beast, sweat pouring down his face. Just then, a window reappeared in front of him, alerting him that he now needed to survive for 4 hours. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, who had just returned from the horrors of the double dungeon, found himself once again in deep trouble. In the desert, we see him once again struggling to survive. He's running from a giant sand centipede, the beast roaring in rage as it charges toward him, doing everything it can to catch him. We are shown the hospital tent where Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had just been, and the time is already 5:00 in the morning. We are shown the gaping mouth of a massive sand centipede, its fangs as sharp as finely sharpened swords. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's face was twisted with fear, but even so, the fear he felt now was nothing compared to what he had endured inside the double dungeon. A notification suddenly popped up announcing that the penalty was complete. Finally, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo returned to his room. Along with him, his chamber had transported not only himself, but also a small amount of sand from the desert. A window appeared in front of him, stating that he had completed the penalty task. It was clear from Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's face that he was utterly exhausted after all he had been running from the massive sand centipedes for 4 long hours. Another notification appeared in front of him, informing him that he had received a reward for completing the penalty mission. However, he was far too exhausted to accept it right away and needed some time to recover. A nurse entered his room and found Hunter Sung Jin-Woo lying unconscious on the floor. Confused and alarmed by the scene, she immediately called for help. At the hospital, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo became a topic of conversation among the nurses. They talked about how almost immediately after waking up he began running. Despite being a hunter, their concern for his health didn't fade. Just because he was awake didn't mean he should push himself that hard. Yet every day he ran laps around the hospital building. It was also that what happened on the first day related to the penalty task would never happen again. From then on, he made sure to fulfill the daily task on time. During those 4 days, Jin-Woo came to realize a few important things. As he paused to catch his breath, it became clear to him that the mysterious instructions, this so-called pre-evolutionary system, were not a hallucination. As it turned out, he had already accomplished all 4 goals. The pop-up appeared before him, visible only to him. For completing the daily task, he was granted 3 rewards. The first reward was recovery. This reward restored his spent strength and relieved the fatigue weighing down his body. The next rewards were characterization points and a box of unknowns. Characterization points allowed him to increase his base parameters, enhancing his strength, agility, and other core abilities. He could now monitor his parameters, skills, items, and inventory in detail. It was all becoming more and more like a game. After accomplishing his last goal and running 10 kilometers, Jin-Woo decided to sit down and rest. As he looked over his status screen, he couldn't help but feel a sense of happiness, knowing that he could now increase and improve his skills. So toward evening, he went to the reception desk to ask for permission to leave. The girl sitting behind the administrative counter told him that of course he could leave, but only for a short while. Somewhere near Hapjeong Station, our hero stood in front of the subway entrance, ready to take his next step forward. It turned out that when he completed the daily quest and received the reward box, he had obtained some kind of key. In reality, this key was the entrance key to an E-rank dungeon. On the face of Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, there was a clear mix of anxiety and impatience, an expression that reflected the uncertainty of what might be waiting for him inside. Before enter dungeon, he wondered if all these quests, status windows, and rewards were the result of a double awakening. There he stood for a moment, shaking the key in his hand as he thought. If the weakest Hunter claimed to have received a double awakening in a personal dungeon, others would surely laugh. Still, he decided to head down into the subway and open the dungeon. A blue aura appeared out of thin air as he walked into it. The moment our hero stepped through, a notification appeared before him stating that he had entered the crazy dungeon. The gate began to sparkle, and to his shock, it suddenly transformed into a solid wall. He quickly realized he was now completely sealed inside. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo tried to walk back through the barrier, but it was completely blocked. Yet to his surprise, an average girl walking up the stairs to leave the subway passed through the barrier effortlessly, completely unaware of its existence. As it turned out, none of the people around could see the dungeon, only Hunter Sung Jin-Woo could. He tried his best to find any gap or weakness in the barrier to escape, but no matter how hard he searched, he couldn't find a single loophole. He then received a notification stating that he couldn't leave the dungeon unless he either killed the boss or used the crystal of return. By the look on his face, it was clear he was at a loss, realizing he would have to clear the entire dungeon alone. As he stared into the deep looming darkness ahead, the weight of that challenge settled heavily on his shoulders. He could feel the ominous magical power radiating from the creature. Fear gripped Hunter Sung Jin-Woo as he realized once again the grave mistake he had made by coming here alone. Walking a little further, he noticed that everything around him resembled a regular abandoned market: desolate stalls, broken crates, and dust-covered remnants of what once was a bustling place, now eerily silent under the scorching sun. You could tell by the look in his eyes, Jin-Woo was losing his confidence with each step. The weight of uncertainty and fear pressed down on him, slowly chipping away at his resolve. He suddenly sensed a foul stench in the air and a strange tension that made his skin crawl. It turned out there was some kind of red beast lurking nearby, its presence heavy and menacing. There, looming before him, was the huge and ferocious mouth of the beast, a wolf-like creature with a metal jaw and fangs as sharp as perfectly honed swords. Without hesitation, it lunged forward, attempting to attack our protagonist. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo managed to dodge the beast's attack with one sharp and swift movement, narrowly avoiding the deadly jaws that snapped just inches from his face. Here we finally see the beast in its full terrifying glory. Hunter Jin-Woo, having just dodged its ferocious attack, stood face to face with a monster that showed no hesitation, one that didn't care who was in front of it and would relentlessly attack anything it saw. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, in turn, gathered every ounce of his focus, reaching maximum concentration. His mind raced, strategizing and analyzing, thinking of any possible way he could overpower the savage beast before him. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo found himself unable to move. His body refused to obey him. He couldn't understand why. It didn't seem like he had any lingering trauma from the double dungeon, yet something deep inside was holding him back. While he was lost in thought, the wolf-like beast sprang into action, baring its sharp fangs as it lunged forward, trying to bite Hunter Sung Jin-Woo in half. But somehow, against all odds, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo managed to dodge its attacks just in time, narrowly escaping the monster's lethal strike. One of the beast's attacks came dangerously close, almost striking Hunter Sung Jin-Woo. He barely dodged by ducking at the last second, then used a one-handed leap to propel himself away, crashing into an iron gate with a sharp clang. He marveled at his own movements, how he could perform such acrobatic stunts. He was moving so lightly and swiftly it felt as though his body weighed nothing at all. Just as another strike came his way, he dodged effortlessly and landed firmly on his feet. Then the wolf managed to lunge at him again, this time so suddenly that Hunter Sung Jin-Woo could barely react. In that moment of desperation, he gathered all his strength into a single fist and with one mighty blow struck the beast. The impact was so powerful that the wolf was sent flying several meters away, crashing into iron beams and shattering them with the sheer force of its body. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo himself didn't know he possessed such strength. Yet despite managing to knock the beast away, he knew it wasn't enough. To defeat this red wolf, Raken the Steel Fang, that powerful strike alone wouldn't be sufficient. Raken the Steel Fang continued his relentless assault on Hunter Sung Jin-Woo. But Jin-Woo, with sharpened reflexes and growing determination, managed to fend off the wolf's savage attacks. Still, there was no doubt in the beast's eyes. He could clearly see that Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was weaker than him. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo once again managed to dodge the savage attack of Steel Fang Raken. The beast's fangs were so strong and durable that they could chew through metal as easily as if it were rubber, making each missed bite a narrow escape from certain death. Looking at the terrifying beast before him, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo didn't know what to do. Overwhelmed and outmatched, he realized he had no choice. He had to run away. Without hesitation, he turned and sprinted, hoping to gain some distance and come up with a plan. Steel Fang Raken proved to be faster than Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, quickly cutting off his escape and blocking his path. After a relentless flurry of attacks, the wolf finally managed to land a blow, wounding Hunter Sung Jin-Woo and drawing blood. He thought to himself he had nothing. No team, no healer, no gear. How could he possibly defeat this monstrous wolf? All Hunter Jin-Woo had was his bare natural body and the will to survive. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo kept thinking, desperately searching for a way to overpower the beast. He knew that to stand a real chance, he would need a weapon imbued with magical power. And that's when something sparked in his mind, an idea, a memory, something he had overlooked that might just turn the tide. He quickly opened his inventory where something had been lying untouched. Reaching in, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo placed his hand inside the glowing space and began pulling something out, hoping it was exactly what he needed to survive. In an instant, Steel Fang Raken's face split in two. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had struck with a single sharp and precise swing. With that devastating blow, he cleaved the monstrous wolf cleanly in half, ending the battle in a flash of power and determination. It turned out that the sword Hunter Kim had left behind in the dungeon had somehow been preserved in Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's inventory. Now with that very blade, Jin-Woo had ended the fight. Lying before him was the bloodied, lifeless body of the once ferocious wolf, still and defeated. A new alert appeared before him. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's level had been raised. The system had acknowledged his victory, and with it came the reward of newfound strength. He remembered that Hunter Kim once said the sword was worth 3 million won. Back then, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo couldn't even touch it, but now not only was he using it, he was wielding it with confidence. Looking at the blade, he remarked to himself that the inventory was a very useful feature. With the weapon in hand, he was visibly calmer, more composed, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Then 2 more steel fang rakens appeared in front of him, emerging from the shadows with menacing growls. But when Hunter Sung Jin-Woo tried to pull his sword from the ground, it wouldn't budge. It was stuck deep in the earth. Panic crept in as his anxiety surged, realizing he was unarmed once again and facing even greater danger. After all, the 2 rakens didn't wait for him to draw his sword. They lunged at him without hesitation. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, straining with all his might, finally managed to pull the blade free from the ground. With one powerful motion, he swung the sword and cleaved through one of the rakens, cutting it down before it could strike. But the second wolf managed to catch his sword between its steel fangs, holding it firmly in place. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, however, wasn't about to let go that easily. With a surge of strength and determination, he twisted his grip and delivered a mighty swing, severing the beast's head cleanly. Behind him, another wolf, watching the brutal end of its kin, shuddered in fear, its confidence shaken by the sight. After slaying the 3 rakens, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo felt his confidence begin to rise. Compared to the terrifying monsters he had faced in the dual dungeon, these wolves, though fierce, were far weaker. And for the first time, he started to believe in his growing strength. So he turned his gaze toward the last 4th raken. Sensing the shift in power, the beast began to retreat, slowly pulling back into the shadows. Yet its glowing eyes lingered in the darkness, as if to say, "This isn't over, I'll be back." Now standing still, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo began analyzing his status. He realized that each time he completed a daily task, he earned 3 characteristic points which he could allocate to any attribute of his choice. Additionally, every time he leveled up, each of his base characteristics increased by 1 point automatically. We can see that Hunter Sung Jin-Woo is now at level 2. Curious to test how strong he could become, as his stats increased, he decided to pour all his characterization points into strength. With each point invested, he felt his physical power grow, his body responding to the enhancements with noticeable improvement. His face began to radiate a newfound confidence, stronger than before. He now believed that the concept of leveling up was the most effective path forward. After all, with each new level, he gained +1 point to every characteristic, steadily making him stronger in every aspect. Now taking a deep breath, he tried to make sense of everything that had happened. The chaos, the power, the strange system, it was all real. After a brief pause, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo finally stood up and decided to move on, his eyes briefly lingering on the corpses of the monsters he had slain. They were proof of how far he had come and how much further he could still go. He couldn't understand why these monsters didn't have magical cores like the ones he was used to. Instead, various items were dropping from them, strange loot that seemed to replace the usual core rewards. It was yet another mystery in this game-like system he was now a part of. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo discovered that he even had access to a store among his system features. However, it turned out he couldn't buy anything yet. His level was simply too low. For now, all he could do was look and plan for the future, so he decided to sell the steel fang that had dropped from Raken. As it turned out, the fang was worth 20 gold coins. However, he had no idea whether that was a lot or not. Since he still couldn't access or use the store, he had nothing to compare it to. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo sat down, carefully picking up the loot that had dropped from Raken. After gathering everything, he remained seated for a moment, staring into the distance, quietly wondering what he should do next now that the battle was over and the path ahead uncertain. We can see Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's stained sword resting beside him, still intact, still sharp. Unlike regular swords that would have broken after just a few heavy blows, this one had endured, proving it was no ordinary weapon. It was a silent testament to how far he'd already come. To exit the dungeon, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had 2 options: defeat the dungeon boss or find the return stone. But he knew that right now he didn't have the strength to face the boss. So there was only one path forward: he had to level up first. Just in time, a whole pack of Rakens materialized before him. It felt as though the one Raken that had escaped earlier had returned with reinforcements. They had come to finish what their kin could not, surrounding Hunter Sung Jin-Woo with murderous intent in their eyes. And so Hunter Sung Jin-Woo steadied his breathing, gathered his thoughts, and tightened his grip on his sword. With determination burning in his eyes, he prepared to face the approaching Raken pack, ready to fight, survive, and grow stronger with every strike. His expression had truly changed. Gone was the fear and hesitation of the past. Now his gaze held unwavering confidence. And just before one of the Rakens could reach him, he moved first, launching into battle with resolve burning in every step. He was the first to strike. Once close enough, he launched his attack, slashing into the Rakens with swift, precise blows. With each punch and swing, he began cutting them down one by one. But while he was focused on one Raken, distracted in the heat of combat, another was already closing in from behind. The other Raken, waiting for the perfect moment, lunged forward and grabbed Hunter Sung Jin-Woo by the scruff of the neck. But with a sharp, explosive punch, Jin-Woo retaliated, driving his fist into the beast and shoving it away with sheer force, breaking free from its grip. And so it became clear Hunter Sung Jin-Woo still had many enemies to face. But his expression now was not one of fear, it was the confident look of a predator. With incredible speed, he swung his sword and charged at the Rakens, striking with swift, precise blows. Each movement was sharper than the last, and with a relentless flurry of attacks, he cut down the Rakens one by one. He gradually increased his level with each kill, feeling his power rise, but he knew all too well that if he hesitated for even a moment, death would be waiting. That's why he continued to exterminate the Rakens without hesitation, without mercy, and with no room left for fear or doubt. He exterminated the Rakens in brutal, efficient ways, cleaving them in half, severing their heads and driving his sword through their skulls. As he fought, his mind clung to thoughts of the people dear to him, those who would be left behind, those who would suffer if he died. With those thoughts burning in his heart and his sword firmly in his hands, he pressed on, relentless and unwavering. He continued forward, no longer willing to be seen or to see himself as a coward or weakling. Now he held his sword with purpose, striking down monsters without hesitation or second thoughts. With every kill, his level rose and the strength within him grew. Around him lay countless Raken corpses, their blood forming dark pools beneath his feet, testament to how far he had come and how determined he was to go even further. He continued forward, driven by a fire that no longer allowed him to be seen as a coward or a weakling. With his sword gripped tightly in his hands, he attacked each Raken without hesitation, without looking back. Every strike was deliberate, every motion purposeful, and with each fallen beast his level steadily increased. All around him lay the aftermath, countless Raken corpses and pools of blood soaking the ground, a brutal testament to his relentless determination. One could tell by his heavy breathing how long he had been fighting them, but it was not yet time to relax. Many more monsters still awaited him ahead, and with each battle his gaze grew increasingly confident. However, there was one issue: his sword had already worn out. Despite being a high-end weapon, its durability had decreased significantly after so many consecutive battles. There was a story told by a dream hunter about an occasion when he had bought a dagger that cost a little over 50,000 won. Hunting became much easier with it, but as could be seen from his method of battle, the dagger broke down very quickly. Even on that day, with the 50,000 won dagger, he had only managed to obtain 3 E-rank crystals. Yet here one could see how happy Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was because he had this sword. As observed, he had succeeded in killing all the Raken during this battle. He had received quite a number of drops, and among these drops was the very thing he needed most: the Stone of Return. Then Hunter Sung Jin-Woo thought about returning. However, from the way he grasped the Stone of Return, one could tell he did not want to go back yet. Still, he pondered what would happen to the dungeon if he used the stone. Since this dungeon was created by the system, he assumed it would likely disappear once he left. Yet he did not wish to stop there. Eventually, he decided to continue mopping up the dungeon. He walked deeper into it, stepping into the darkness. Here he was seen fighting the Raken once again. It was clear he was determined to extract everything possible from this dungeon. Soon other monsters appeared before him, such as Briga, who resembled a panther, and Razin, who looked like a monkey. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had definitely become stronger, and the magical power around him felt clearer than before. However, it was noticeable that his sword had accumulated even more scratches. He had already defeated many monsters, and it seemed as though he knew exactly what they were going to do. He was anticipating their movements, realizing that there was a distinct pattern to how these monsters acted. This made it easier for him to deal with them. Adjusting the position of his hand, he picked up the sword. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo stabbed Razin's chest with one sharp movement. Then, without pausing his attack, he chopped off the head of one of the Briga. Immediately afterward, he continued his assault, cutting off the head of the second Briga. Suddenly, a Raken appeared from the other side, but its appearance did not unsettle Hunter Sung Jin-Woo in any way, and he effortlessly sliced the creature in two. And so, after numerous battles against monsters, he began to notice one thing. Depending on their strength, the color of the lettering above their heads changed to display their names. When Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had first entered this dungeon, the color of the Raken's name had been red. But now it had turned white, which meant that Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had become much stronger. However, he faced one problem. He sensed an eerie aura emanating from the basement below, even though he had already cleared so many enemies above. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had encountered monsters much stronger than this one, yet he felt that there might be trouble coming from the monster lurking below. An ominous aura never failed to seep from the basement, sending a thrill through Hunter Sung Jin-Woo. Since ordinary monsters were no longer a challenge for him, there was little point in continuing to fight them anymore. If his stay in this dungeon were prolonged, his sword would eventually break. And so Hunter Sung Jinwoo made the decision to descend, going lower and lower into the depths. Hunter Sung Jinwoo felt the ominous aura growing stronger and stronger. The descent was much longer than he had expected or anticipated. Finally, he reached the bottom. Hunter Sung Jinwoo reached the very end of the path. Immediately after descending, he was struck by a swift and scathing blow. Though he managed to block it, the monster proved too strong and he couldn't deflect the attack entirely. It hurled him into the wall. The impact was so severe that his internal organs were damaged and he began coughing up blood. To continue fighting after such a devastating blow, he needed to take a brief moment to catch his breath. But as it turned out, that single strike had broken his sword. It turned out he had been wrong when he thought he had raised his level enough. And now at last the boss of this dungeon revealed itself, Lord of the Swamp Blue Rasaka, a creature that resembled a massive snake. Its eyes were so fierce they radiated terror, and its two front fangs were incredibly sharp. The Dream Hunter realized that this creature was the dungeon boss. Against the backdrop of this formidable opponent, the hunter appeared small, but not insignificant. The color of the boss's name was orange, which indicated that it wasn't overwhelmingly powerful. However, its scales were so tough that Hunter Sung Jinwoo's sword couldn't pierce them. Already wounded and holding a broken sword, Hunter Sung Jinwoo stood his ground as the dungeon boss stared directly at him. Finally, Rasaka made his move and launched an attack at Hunter Sung Jinwoo. The hunter managed to parry the blow, but once again he couldn't penetrate the creature's tough scales. And so Hunter Sung Jinwoo found himself facing a monster far more troublesome than any he had encountered in this dungeon so far. He began to circle the beast, studying it carefully, trying to find a gap in its defenses from different angles. Hunter Sung Jinwoo still didn't understand how to pierce Rasaka's scales, while Rasaka continued to attack him without hesitation or fear. Once again, Rasaka managed to catch Hunter Sung Jinwoo off guard and landed another strike. Hunter Sung Jinwoo once again managed to parry the attack. However, as it turned out, this strike had been extremely dangerous. Hunter Sung Jinwoo barely managed to dodge the punch, but since Rasaka moved like a snake, her movements were highly unpredictable. Despite his efforts, she still managed to catch him. Hunter Sung Jinwoo barely managed to dodge the punch, but Rasaka, with her serpentine agility, moved in a way that was highly unpredictable. Despite all his efforts, she still managed to strike him. After that, Hunter Sung Jinwoo fell to the ground. Even after enhancing his skills and becoming stronger, he realized that it still wasn't enough. Yet he didn't give up hope. He got back up and continued to attack Rasaka, hoping he could find her weak spot. Then he remembered his past self, specifically the conversation he once had with Mr. Song. In that moment, Mr. Song had spoken about how Hunter Sung Jinwoo was known as the weakest hunter, and he had urged him to try harder to break free from that nickname. And then Sung Jinwoo was seen fending off Rasaka's attack. But suddenly she managed to strike Hunter Sung Jinwoo once more. He barely managed to parry the attack, but even so he couldn't stay on his feet after that powerful punch. And so, determined to rid himself of that humiliating nickname, he pushed himself to keep going. Hunter Sung Jinwoo went on the offensive, desperately trying to defeat the dungeon boss. But with only a broken sword, just the hilt and a fragment of the blade remaining, it was clear that overcoming such a powerful enemy would be incredibly difficult. Rasaka's strength was nothing compared to the power of the monsters in the double dungeon. In that place, they had no choice but to surrender and lower their heads in the face of overwhelming danger. The Dream Hunter continued to recall moments from his past life, among them the memory of the enormous statue in the double dungeon. That statue was so powerful it could have wiped them out at any moment. Faced with such a force, they had no option but to submit and bow. Hunter Sung Jinwoo was once again reminded of Hunter Kim's betrayal. He recalled how Kim had once spoken about looking up to him, how he never expected someone like Sung Jinwoo to achieve anything. And yet, just before the betrayal, Hunter Kim had thanked him. But in that moment, none of it mattered. After all, when faced with such terrifying power, anyone could choose to betray you. And so Hunter Sung Jinwoo flipped the sword, changing its position in his hand, and then launched an attack on Rasaka. But luck was not on his side. Rasaka struck him on the back with her tail, sending Hunter Sung Jinwoo crashing into the wall. As if to demonstrate her overwhelming strength, Rasaka didn't follow up with another attack. But Hunter Sung Jinwoo refused to give up. He rose to his feet once more, and from the look in his eyes it was clear he was hungry for more power. Then Rasaka attacked him again. But after skillfully dodging her strikes, Hunter Sung Jinwoo delivered a precise counterattack. However, despite his efforts, he still couldn't pierce her scales. But still, compared to the enormous statue in the double dungeon, this monster was nothing. It didn't inspire nearly as much terror as that boss had. Gathering his thoughts, he launched another attack on Rasaka, desperately trying to pierce her scales once more. But Rasaka responded with a sharp and swift counterattack of her own. However, even after losing his sword, he didn't hesitate. He grabbed Rasaka with his bare hands. He didn't seize her as if to choke her, nor did he use such force that she struck the ceiling of the room. But in her struggle to free herself, Rasaka tried everything she could to shake Hunter Sung Jinwoo off. And from the expression on his face it was clear, her attempts were not entirely in vain, but Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was not going to give up so easily. He tightened his grip on Rasaka even harder. As a result, Rasaka began to take significant damage and was already starting to spit blood. After that, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo continued to squeeze with all the strength he had without letting us witness the final moments of their battle. We are then taken to the hospital where a doctor and a young woman seated at the administrative desk are discussing Hunter Sung Jin-Woo. They mention that he has almost fully recovered and will be discharged soon. In response, the doctor remarks that top-ranked hunters are quite wealthy while the weaker ones can barely earn anything. He admits he doesn't understand why the weak hunters continue to risk their lives despite the odds. The doctor adds that the injuries hunters sustain after raids are often horrific. In particular, they arrive in such a condition that any ordinary person would have already died by now. In response, the girl expresses her curiosity and asks how they manage to stay alive. The doctor emphasizes that it's due to the strength they gain upon awakening. It's what allows them to survive injuries that would be fatal to normal people. And so the scene shifts back to the place where Hunter Sung Jin-Woo and the dungeon boss Rasaka had just fought. The thick fog hanging in the air makes it difficult to see what became of Hunter Sung Jin-Woo. And now Hunter Sung Jin-Woo is shown sitting beside Rasaka's corpse. His clothes are completely torn, evidence of the brutal battle he just endured. Hunter Kim's sword, the one he had thrown away in that dungeon and that had ended up in Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's hands, was now broken. Sung Jin-Woo sat there wounded and exhausted, yet in his grasp he now held a new weapon. It turned out to be a C-rank dagger called Rasaka's Fang, and it possessed two effects, paralysis and bleed. In addition to the weapon, he also received another item, Rasaka's Poison. Since Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had killed the dungeon boss, the dungeon began to disappear. It started reverting to its true form just like in a video game. Both the dungeon and Rasaka's corpse vanished as if they had never existed at all. And so after clearing the dungeon, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo made his way upstairs. When he emerged above ground, he saw that night had already fallen. Then a silhouette appeared. It turned out to be the soldier who had escorted all the regular people to safety. Since Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had just emerged from the dungeon, he asked the soldier what had happened while he was inside. The soldier, noticing the sword in Sung Jin-Woo's hand and his tattered clothing, quickly put the pieces together. In that moment, he realized that Sung Jin-Woo was the hunter. So after that, the soldier told Hunter Sung Jin-Woo to follow him. As Sung Jin-Woo walked behind the soldier, he noticed the corpses of monsters lying scattered across the area. And he quickly realized that a portal had opened nearby, allowing the monsters to escape. After the soldier confirmed Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's words, his expression changed, growing more serious and concerned. We can clearly see how much the protagonist has changed. And then just as suddenly, he felt a surge of magical power rising within him. And so we are shown the monster being attacked in various ways, yet completely unaffected. The hunters are doing their best, trying relentlessly to bring it down, while the soldiers work to keep the civilians at a safe distance. Meanwhile, frustration begins to grow among the people, who start to resent the hunters for taking so long to deal with the threat. But what they fail to understand is just how difficult a hunter's job truly is, and how challenging it is to face such monsters. And so the battlefield unfolds before us. The healers are doing their best to restore the health of the tank, who is bearing the brunt of the monster's relentless attacks. As it turned out, the monster's armor was far tougher than they had anticipated. Finally, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo arrived on the scene. It was clear that the team was struggling to contain the monster. The tank continued to absorb the full force of its attacks, while the other hunters desperately tried to inflict even the slightest damage. Meanwhile, the healers worked tirelessly to tend to the wounded, doing everything they could to keep their comrades standing. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo appeared to be deep in thought. Meanwhile, one of the mages called out to a second healer asking for assistance. That healer turned out to be a B-rank healer, Hunter Juhi, but the hunter couldn't understand why Huntress Juhi wasn't treating them. She began to suspect that something might be wrong with Juhi. And then we see Juhi slowly begin to use her healing power, but suddenly she remembered the face of that enormous statue from the double dungeon. Her expression revealed that she still hadn't recovered from the trauma of that harrowing experience. In that moment, she realized that if she backed out now, she wouldn't be able to return to the life she once knew. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo noted that even after a week, Juhi still hadn't been able to overcome her fear. It also made him reflect on himself, realizing that he too hadn't completely conquered his own fear. And just like her, he knew that if he backed off now, he would return to his old life as the weakest hunter. He determined that this stone boss was approximately D rank. After calculating everything, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo took a wide step back in preparation and raised his nearly broken sword. For this attack, he tensed every muscle in his arm. His face, filled with confidence and determination, made it clear he was about to shatter this monster into pieces. With a precise combination of footwork and a sharp thrust, he drove his sword straight toward the boss. At the same time, the healers were using all their strength to treat the tank, who had been enduring the boss's relentless blows for a long while. One could see from the expression on his face just how exhausted he was from holding back the stone monster. The healers continued treating him without pause, repeatedly saying that what they truly needed was a high-ranked hunter. But then the tank noticed something strange, and in an instant something flew straight into the boss's face. Just like that, the strike landed perfectly. After Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's attack, the boss was shattered into splinters. The hunters who had been battling it erupted in cheers, believing they were the ones who had slain the monster, but the tank couldn't shake the thought that up until that moment their attacks had been completely ineffective. Suddenly overcome by exhaustion, he collapsed. Eventually, the tank realized that they had received help from someone outside. He started searching for what had flown at the boss. As he looked at the boss's corpse, he couldn't understand how or what could have blown its head off. He finally found the weapon that had killed the boss and was stunned. Despite 10 men failing to even wound it, the boss had been slain with just a sword. The tank turned to one of the soldiers and asked if he had seen who threw the sword. The soldier wanted to mention Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, but he was already gone. The soldier replied that Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had been there just moments ago, but had vanished as if he had vaporized. Finally, we see that Hunter Sung Jin-Woo has returned to the hospital and is back to his daily routine. At the moment, he is doing abs exercises, marveling at how much his body has improved. Afterward, he begins doing push-ups, sweat pouring down his face. Just then, one of the nurses enters the room apologizing for dropping by unannounced. She is visibly impressed by his muscular physique, unable to take her eyes off his body. She wonders if he had such a physique when he first arrived. She then informs him that today is his last day in the hospital and that he's being discharged. Taking the opportunity, she asks for his phone number. At first, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo is confused, unsure of why she needs his number. However, he quickly concludes that she must be planning to send him the results of his tests. So he gives her his phone number. Afterward, we are shown Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's sister Jinna waking up. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo asks her if she's going to school. She notices something about her brother's body and asks if he has started working out. She also points out that he's gotten a little taller than before. He doesn't say anything in response, but instead tells her to bring an umbrella. She protests, saying she doesn't need one, but Hunter Sung Jin-Woo pulls her back and places the umbrella in her backpack. Once Jinna leaves, the scene shifts. A window suddenly appears by his side, notifying him that he has completed today's daily quest. He notices that after these daily exercises and the improvements in his performance, his body has actually gotten stronger and better. In the main window, his measurements appeared, showing the increase in his strength. Looking at his status, it was clear that strength was now the dominant attribute among all his abilities. He started to worry about getting overly pumped, ending up like those bodybuilders who focus solely on muscle mass. Despite his strength, he noticed that all his other attributes were on the same level. He began thinking about which characteristics were most interrelated and which ones he should prioritize for improvement. This time, he didn't pour all his points into strength. He also invested a few into perception and endurance. He left 8 points in dexterity, as he knew strength and dexterity were closely related and would complement each other well. While he was distributing his attribute points, his phone rang. Naturally, he picked up. It turned out to be his tenant, who asked why he hadn't been answering their calls lately. He replied that he had been hospitalized due to an accident, which didn't seem to surprise the tenant. The tenant then informed him that the rent was due. Apparently aware of Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's situation, the tenant immediately offered to postpone the rent payment until the next month. However, with Hunter Sung Jin-Woo having gone through some kind of reawakening and becoming stronger, money was no longer a concern for him. He believed that soon he would be able to rise to the ranks of top hunters, but for that he needed more dungeon hikes to gain experience and acquire more magic crystals. However, he now faced a problem. The expensive and truly valuable crystals were dropped by high-ranking monsters, which could only be found in high-ranking dungeons. These dungeons wouldn't allow E-rank hunters like him to enter. Having never been to a dungeon above D rank before, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo found himself thinking about his next steps while watching TV. He considered approaching a TV studio to offer a report on the hunter who had suddenly risen in rank. However, he also weighed the potential consequences of revealing his reawakening. If he reported it, there would be questions about how he had gained such power, and he wasn't ready to reveal all his cards just yet. For now, he decided it was best to focus on making some money. Then we are shown a building where Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had arrived to make some money. As he entered, he was met by a crowd of hunters similar to him who were likely preparing to go on a raid. The hunter who approached him, apparently the leader of the group, asked if he was an E-rank. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo confirmed that he was. At that moment, one of the other hunters spoke up, saying that he knew him. He then reminded Hunter Sung Jin-Woo of his old nickname, Weakest Hunter. The squad leader calmed him down, explaining that they were focused on quantity. It took a certain number of people to enter a C-rank dungeon and above. So Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was being called in just as a pot staff. He wouldn't need to fight. In exchange for simply joining their ranks, this squad, consisting of 5 C-rank hunters and 4 D-rank hunters, was willing to pay him. We are then shown the rule. When entering a C-rank gate, the number of hunters required must be at least 10, with at least half of them being C-rank. While Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was familiarizing himself with the contract, the group waited for his decision. Someone approached him. It was D-rank Hunter Yoo Jin-ho, who had also been called for the stakeout, just like Hunter Sung Jin-Woo. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's face showed clear surprise at something. It turned out that Yoo Jin-ho was equipped with gleaming, seemingly very expensive armor, which caught his attention. As we can see, the only thing Hunter Sung Jin-Woo will have to do is carry their bag of supplies. This bag contains everything they might need for the raid, including food, spare equipment, and a first aid kit. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo noticed that there wasn't a single healer on the team. The head of the squad explained that none of the settlers wanted to join them for an E-rank dungeon raid. As a result, their team was made up entirely of tanks and bozos. Still, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo doubted whether he should accept the offer under such risky conditions. Seeing that Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was still uncertain about whether he should join the raid, the other hunters reassured him, telling him not to worry about anything. They assured him that they would handle everything themselves. With that, the squad leader finally announced the start of the raid. Yoo Jin-ho patted Hunter Sung Jin-Woo on the back, telling him not to worry. Since Sung Jin-Woo was an E-rank, Jin-ho reassured him that in a pinch he could protect him. However, from the look on Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's face, it was clear that he didn't fully trust Yoo Jin-ho. Finally, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo agreed to go on the raid, putting the backpack on his back. The team then made their way to the dungeon. Before entering, the head of the squad noted that the area had been unusually turbulent recently, with even construction having been suspended. Yoo Jin-ho added that the reason for this was that their director had fled overseas with billions of won. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, however, didn't understand why Yoo Jin-ho was telling him this. Yoo Jin-ho tried to be friendly, asking the E-rank hunter if the bag was heavy. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo replied that it was fine, emphasizing that he had invested characteristic points in strength, making the bag feel as light as a feather for him. Despite their brief meeting, it felt like there was some connection between them. However, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo quickly reminded Jin-ho that he usually didn't pay attention to him. Then Hunter Sung Jin-Woo became furious at Jin-ho's comment that hunting was just a hobby for him. This remark struck a nerve, and now, the leader announced that they had finally arrived. Compared to the gates they had seen before, this one seemed several times larger. The sheer size of this gate surprised even the C-rank hunters who had been in such dungeons many times before. Hunter Yoo Jin-ho was also visibly shocked by the massive size of the gate. However, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, having seen the S-rank gate for the first time, was not surprised by it. He emphasized that the size of the gate wasn't what mattered most. What truly mattered was the amount of energy that emanated from the gate. The look on Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's face showed that he was still a little nervous, as it was his first raid in an S-rank dungeon. Despite his calm demeanor, there was a slight tension in his expression. They finally began to enter the gate. Yoo Jin-ho firmly grasped his sword and proudly showed it off. From the outside, it seemed like his rank was higher than D, which made Hunter Sung Jin-Woo feel a bit envious of Yoo Jin-ho's impressive outfit. He also noted that the rest of the squad had pretty good equipment as well, especially once they were inside the dungeon. The first thing the hunters noticed was how dark it was. It was also strange that there were no glowing stones and not a single monster in sight. This made Yoo Jin-ho nervous, and he asked the E-rank hunter, "Is it possible that there are no monsters in the dungeon?" Hunter Sung Jin-Woo gestured for him to be quiet and tried to concentrate, fully listening for even the slightest movement of the monsters. This dungeon was made up of many tunnels, all engulfed in darkness. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo concluded that the monsters most likely preferred the darkness here and had simply yet to reveal themselves. After thinking it over, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo came to the conclusion that they were dealing with insect-like monsters. Soon after, all the hunters began to fuss, visibly affected by the darkness and the overwhelming number of tunnels surrounding them. The eerie environment was starting to unsettle them. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo quickly realized that the monsters would attack from above. The rest of the group was caught off guard, as the attack from above was entirely unexpected. In the dark, they could see numerous monsters with glowing red eyes. There were so many of them that they didn't completely fill the enormous tunnel, but they kept crawling, endlessly swarming and advancing toward the hunters. One of the hunters fired a magic ball into the tunnel where the ants had emerged. However, it was clear that the blast wasn't enough to kill all the ants. In response, the squad leader activated one of his abilities. After using this power, the insects began to behave strangely. It turned out that the ability allowed him to lure all the monsters toward himself, drawing them in. While the squad leader kept the monsters occupied, the rest of the hunters quickly disposed of them. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo cleared the remaining monsters with impressive teamwork. He began to understand why they didn't take healers with them. The squad had clearly been fighting together for a long time. Hunter Hwan, as the leader, was very skilled in his role, guiding the team with precision and coordination. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo noticed something amiss within the troop. He observed that their fighting style was a bit rough and brutal, lacking the finesse he expected from more seasoned hunters. He also couldn't forget about Yoo Jin-ho, whose equipment was excellent, likely compensating for his lack of experience in battle. While Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was observing the other members of the raid, one of the insects approached him. It was clear that this monster was no match for Sung Jin-Woo. As he watched the creature, his face showed a sense of disappointment. He had expected more from a C-rank dungeon. Once all the insects were finally dealt with, the team began to collect magic crystals from the corpses of the monsters. Hwan thanked Hunter Sung Jin-Woo for warning them about the monsters and asked how he knew they were above them. Sung Jin-Woo explained that it was thanks to his well-developed perception. Hunter Hwan then emphasized that Sung Jin-Woo had good instincts and suggested that he shouldn't worry about such trivialities anymore. However, the hunters of the squad soon noticed something odd. They found a group of ants that were killed not by magic, but by being simply torn apart. The squad leader hypothesized that there had been a territorial feud between the monsters in this dungeon, which meant there were likely stronger monsters lurking around. Feeling that something was wrong, Sung Jin-Woo checked with Yoo Jin-ho to see if his weapons were expensive. After confirming that they were, he advised Yoo Jin-ho to be on guard. It became clear that Hunter Hwan and his party were up to something, and Sung Jin-Woo sensed that they needed to stay alert. Once again, we see that in this dungeon there are many passages that are quite easy to get lost in. Sometimes exploring the entire dungeon could take weeks. It was also possible that during their exploration they might eventually come across the boss. After a couple of hours, they continued searching deeper into the dungeon looking for the rest of the monsters and the boss. However, the boss itself still wasn't engaging in combat. Everyone was just carrying what they needed for the raid. At times they stopped for a break, but Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's uneasiness never went away. There was something off about the facial expressions of the members of this squad. It was clear they were up to something. After the break they pressed on, but once again they encountered a pile of torn-apart insects in front of them. Squad leader Hwang noticed something wasn't right and asked his ally to push a little further to investigate. Now the hunters noticed something truly shocking. From the expression on Hunter Hwang's face, it was clear that they had found something terrifying. They discovered many insects wrapped in spider webs, and almost the entire passage beyond was blocked by a thick layer of cobwebs. After examining the scene, they came to the conclusion that this was the boss room they had been searching for all along. Hunter Hwang quickly issued orders for everyone to be on high alert and prepare for the impending boss battle. Once again, one of Hunter Hwang's subordinates noticed something unusual. As they walked a little further and looked around, they found a massive stash of mana crystals. These crystals weren't as valuable as the ones dropped by monsters, but there were so many of them that they could earn more from them than from the monsters' crystals. One of Hwang's subordinates mentioned his younger brother in passing, but it was clear that the squad leader wasn't paying attention to him. Instead, Hwang continued to stare at the enormous pile of crystals, his greedy look showing just how much money they could make from them. As he gazed at the crystals, he also thought about his younger brother who had left their homeland after reaching a high rank driven by the lure of more wealth. Indeed, such a massive amount of crystals was enough to excite anyone. While all the members of Hwang's squad rejoiced at the find, Yoo Jin-ho turned to Hunter Sung Jin-Woo and asked for his contract. After reading it, he raised a question for Hwang. Yoo Jin-ho pointed out that the contract only discussed sharing the magic crystals found with the monsters, but didn't mention anything about crystals found within the dungeon itself. The question clearly made the other hunters uncomfortable as seen from their expressions. Hunter Hwang, however, quickly reassured Yoo Jin-ho that everything found in the dungeon would be divided equally among the raid members. But before they could proceed, he emphasized that they needed to take care of something else first. Then we are shown the face of a massive spider deep in the web, a giant spider which is the boss of the dungeon. Since the gate closes after the boss is killed, the squad needs to take out the mana crystals first. However, it appears that the spider is fast asleep after a heavy meal. As they were about to dig up the mana crystals, it turned out that the hunter in charge of the equipment had left it outside. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, noticing this, immediately realized that something was wrong. Hunter Hwang, the squad leader, forgave his subordinate for the slip-up, but the situation felt increasingly off. Afterward, Hwang instructed Hunter Sung Jin-Woo and Yoo Jin-ho to stay and wait for them. Yoo Jin-ho began to get nervous, but Hwang calmly reassured him, saying that if they stayed away from the spider, it wouldn't touch them. He dismissed any concerns, smiling as he told them not to worry. However, behind that smile was a very devious intent. It was clear now that untold wealth and the risk of death were in the same room. Yoo Jin-ho, despite his initial nervousness, seemed to change his mind. Hwang and his team moved toward the exit, but then Hunter Sung Jin-Woo remembered something. He recalled that to enter a C-rank dungeon, at least 10 people were required. If Hunter Sung Jin-Woo and Yoo Jin-ho stayed in the boss room, while Hwang and his team went outside the dungeon to retrieve the equipment they needed, they wouldn't be able to return. Hunter Sung Jin-Woo quickly realized that they had always been bringing along left-handed people like him and Yoo Jin-ho for sheer numbers. The true plan was to use them as expendable members to ensure the team could meet the required number for the raid, and now he understood the dangerous implications of their role in this mission. We see Hwang addressing one of his subordinates, giving the order to block the entrance to the boss's room. Afterward, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo and Yoo Jin-ho hear some rumbling coming from the tunnel where Hwang and his subordinates had gone. To their shock, Hwang and his team had blown up the entrance they came in through, sealing their way back. This surprised Yoo Jin-ho greatly, but for Hunter Sung Jin-woo it wasn't as much of a surprise. He had suspected all along that they were up to something. Suddenly we are shown a drawing of what appears to be a lizard. Hunter Sung Jin-woo recalls a conversation from the past with one of the hunters. The hunter had spoken about lizard-like hunters in the dungeons, hunters who prey on others. These hunters whose job is inherently dangerous are often killed during raids, but there are those who intentionally kill them for money. Since it's in a dungeon, the authorities can't prove they were murdered. The hunter had warned Sung Jin-woo about such people, calling them lizards, because like lizards shedding their tails, they would abandon you at the most dangerous moment. This warning echoed in Sung Jin-woo's mind as he realized that he might be dealing with one of these lizards in the current situation. Here we see the worried face of Yoo Jin-ho, who doesn't know what to do. He finally realizes that Hwan and his team had only lured them into this dungeon. One of the hunters observes the increasingly desperate Yoo Jin-ho and understands that if they even decided to go with Hwan and his men, they would likely be killed. Looking back, when Hunter Sung Jin-woo had warned them about the insects, it becomes clear that what Junk had meant by saying don't pay attention to such trivialities was that he was simply waiting for the right moment to strike. And so Hunter Sung Jin-woo finally discarded the backpacks of supplies. He realized that the one responsible for the collapse was a C-rank mage named Cho Kyu Hwan. As he observed the cave-in, he searched for any loopholes that might allow them to escape. He quickly concluded that getting out wouldn't be a problem, but there was one major issue that could make their escape difficult. It turned out that the dungeon boss who had been snoozing after a hearty lunch had woken up. Now with Hunter Sung Jin-woo and Yoo Jin-ho trapped in the boss room, they were about to face a much bigger problem. Hwan and his team had already found a way out of the dungeon. One of them suggested that it might be easier to just kill Hunter Sung Jin-woo and Yoo Jin-ho themselves. However, Hwan replied that doing so would wake up the spider boss, putting them in a much more unfavorable position. Hwan realized that the weakest hunter in E-rank with no experience along with a D-rank hunter wouldn't stand a chance against the dungeon boss. Then one of his subordinates noticed Yoo Jin-ho's outfit, which looked like it was worth millions. Curious about his background, they decided to check his phone to figure out which family Yoo Jin-ho came from. The giant spider was already about to attack, and Hunter Sung Jin-woo and Yoo Jin-ho stood ready. Yoo Jin-ho, determined, told his companion to get behind him and that he would figure something out. As the E-rank hunter, Yoo Jin-ho began analyzing the situation, realizing they would have to fight an enemy with many long, powerful limbs. The spider was sweeping everything in its path as it charged toward them. However, Hunter Sung Jin-woo, remembering the double dungeon, couldn't help but reflect on the unforgettable fear and awe he had experienced there. The memory of that dungeon's dangers and the emotions it stirred within him resurfaced, fueling his resolve as the massive spider approached. Hunter Sung Jin-woo smirked, realizing that this boss was nothing compared to the monsters from the double dungeon. He took a few steps forward, telling Yoo Jin-ho to stay behind. Suddenly something began to form in his hand, his prey. Puzzled, Yoo Jin-ho couldn't understand what Sung Jin-woo was trying to do. Sung Jin-woo calmly told him that he was going to kill the boss. Yoo Jin-ho was stunned, unable to comprehend how the so-called weakest hunter in the world could hope to kill a C-rank boss alone. He noted that only an elite B or C-ranked hunter could defeat such a boss. Despite Yoo Jin-ho's confusion, he offered to find a way out of the dungeon instead. But Hunter Sung Jin-woo was resolute. He was almost ready to face the boss. We are shown his new weapon, the blade he had obtained by killing the dungeon boss Rasaka. Fully prepared to fight, Sung Jin-woo stood tall, no longer trembling in fear at the sight of the dungeon boss. This time he was ready for the battle. Hunter Sung Jin-woo thought back to his encounters with the Rasaka boss, which was likely above D-rank, and the golem boss just below D-rank. Compared to those, this C-rank spider boss didn't even seem to measure up. Despite the dangerous and intimidating appearance of the boss, Hunter Sung Jin-woo didn't flinch. Finally, the boss began to attack Hunter Sung Jin-woo and Yoo Jin-ho, but Hunter Sung Jin-woo was unfazed. He rushed toward the spider without hesitation. Concerned, Yoo Jin-ho stayed behind, worried for Sung Jin-woo's safety. The E-rank hunter struck the C-rank boss with a quick, precise blow, and in an instant he was behind the boss, preparing to attack again. Hunter Sung Jin-woo wasn't sure if his attack had landed successfully, but it was clear from the damage to the boss that the strike had indeed worked. Using Rasaka Fang, he had managed to wound the powerful monster. And so Hunter Sung Jin-woo landed behind the boss after his attack, momentarily relaxing after landing a blow on the powerful creature. He knew, however, that this was just the beginning. The real hunt was about to start. Now Hunter Sung Jin-woo and the dungeon boss stood facing each other, both preparing for the intense battle ahead. Meanwhile, Yoo Jin-ho stood in bewilderment, watching Hunter Sung Jin-woo with a mixture of awe and confusion. He couldn't understand how someone with such strength had been classified as an E-rank hunter. Jin-ho was surprised not by the power of the dungeon boss, but by the incredible strength of Hunter Sung Jin-woo. He couldn't help but wonder if Sung Jin-woo was truly an E-rank hunter after all.
Его скриву дома, ли про него и про любовь.